The sun beat down gently on the small town square, where people moved about with brisk energy. It was market day, the one time of the week when farmers, craftsmen, and traders all converged to buy, sell, and gossip. Stalls were lined up, overflowing with fresh produce, jars of honey, baskets of eggs, bolts of fabric, and trinkets from the city. The air carried the aroma of baked bread, roasted nuts, and fried dough, blending with the earthy scent of animals penned nearby. Among the throngs of townsfolk bustled a man whose appearance seemed to draw stares from every direction. His name was Daniel Hayes, a farmer who lived on the outskirts of the valley. He was dressed plainly, wearing faded trousers tucked into well-worn boots and a shirt that had clearly been patched more than once. A wide-brimmed straw hat shaded his sun-browned face. His hands, calloused and rough, bore the marks of decades of toil under the open skies. As he strolled through the market, eyes followed him. Some were indifferent, but others were mocking. A group of young men, dressed in pressed shirts and polished shoes, leaned against a cart, snickering as he passed. "Look at him," one said loud enough for Daniel to hear. "Did he crawl out of a barn this morning?" Another laughed. "My guess is he hasn't seen a proper shirt in 20 years. Probably hasn't got 2 coins to rub together." They cackled while Daniel gave them a calm, steady glance. He did not respond. He had grown used to such comments over the years. To most townsfolk, he was just another simple farmer, nothing more than a man who eked out a living from the soil. His clothes reinforced the impression, and his quiet demeanor invited assumptions. At the far end of the market stood a clothing stall, displaying fine jackets, gleaming leather belts, and silk ties imported from the city. The merchant, a rotund man with a silver-tipped cane, caught sight of Daniel approaching. His smile faltered slightly, then returned in a forced manner. "Good day, sir," the merchant said, though his tone carried a hint of disdain. "Looking for anything today? Or perhaps just browsing?" His eyes flickered toward Daniel's patched shirt as if questioning whether he belonged there at all. Daniel's gaze fell upon a simple wool coat, practical for winter, and he pointed. "How much for that one?" The merchant smirked. "That coat is not cheap. Hand-woven wool, excellent quality. It costs £15. He added quickly, "Of course, I have other items more suited for someone, on a budget." He gestured toward a pile of rough, unfashionable garments stacked at the side. Daniel examined the coat, then asked, "Would you take 20 for 3 of them?" The merchant blinked in confusion. "3? You mean, 3 coats?" Daniel nodded. One of the young men who had mocked him earlier overheard and burst into laughter. 3 coats. Does he plan to sell his cows for it? But to their surprise, Daniel calmly reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a thick roll of bills. He peeled off £60 without hesitation and handed it to the merchant. The man's jaw went slack. His plump fingers shook as he accepted the money, still doubting what he was seeing. Why yes, certainly, sir. 3 coats. Right away." The young men stood silent now, their smirks vanishing. Daniel took the coats, slung them over his arm, and walked away without a word. Yet, this was only a glimpse of the truth. For years, Daniel had been underestimated, laughed at, even dismissed by people who judged him only by his attire. What none of them knew was that the man in patched clothes was not only wealthy, but one of the richest individuals in the entire country. His fortune did not come from sudden luck or inheritance. It had been built slowly, patiently, through relentless hard work and vision. Daniel owned thousands of acres of farmland spread across multiple counties. He had invested in grain mills, dairy operations, and fruit orchards. He owned shipping trucks that distributed produce to major cities. When markets dipped, he bought land others abandoned. When demand soared, he sold strategically. His humility kept him from flaunting his wealth. But the world had a way of forcing revelations. Later that same week, the town held its annual harvest festival, an event drawing not only locals but dignitaries, investors, and even government officials. It was an occasion of pomp and display, with wealthy merchants donning their finest suits, their wives and daughters wrapped in silks and jewels. The festival was held in the Grand Hall near the courthouse, a venue decorated with golden drapes, long tables of delicacies, and a stage for speeches. Daniel arrived in his simple clothes, causing whispers to ripple through the crowd. "What's he doing here?" someone murmured. "This isn't a barn dance." A group of society women covered their mouths, giggling behind lace fans. When the mayor spotted Daniel, his brows furrowed. He hurried over, lowering his voice. Daniel, this event is for donors and officials. Perhaps the market square would be more appropriate for you. Daniel's lips curved into a patient smile. I appreciate your concern, Mayor. But I believe I'm expected. Before the mayor could respond, the large oak doors at the front of the hall swung open, and two men in tailored suits entered. They were government ministers from the capital, accompanied by an entourage of aides. The entire hall shifted in attention as the men moved forward. Then something shocking happened. The lead minister spotted Daniel across the room. His stern face instantly broke into a wide smile. He walked directly past the crowd of elites, past the wealthy merchants and their wives, and extended both hands eagerly toward the farmer. Mr. Hayes, what an honor to see you here. His voice carried through the hall, silencing whispers. We have been awaiting your counsel for the agricultural reforms. Your innovations feed half the country. The crowd froze. The mayor's face went pale. Those who had mocked Daniel earlier now stared in disbelief. The ministers ushered Daniel toward the front, offering him a seat of honor beside them. Throughout the evening, Daniel was the center of conversation. Merchants who had once ignored him now scrambled to shake his hand. Families who had snickered at his clothes now complimented his wisdom. The young men who had laughed at him in the market watched in humiliation as he conversed effortlessly with leaders. At one point, a journalist covering the event leaned in and asked, Mr. Hayes, if I may, why do you dress so modestly when you could afford the finest suits in the country? Daniel chuckled softly. Because clothes don't grow food, young man. Nor do they build character. Soil, patience, and honesty do. I dress for the life I live, not for the eyes that watch me. The words spread through the hall like fire, leaving many guests shifting uncomfortably in their tailored finery. That night, when Daniel finally left the grand hall, he did not stay to revel in the newfound respect. He returned quietly to his farmhouse at the edge of the valley, where his wife, Margaret, awaited with a warm meal. To him, wealth was not measured in silks or applause but in the satisfaction of a life lived with integrity. Still, the lesson lingered in the town. The next morning, gossip flowed faster than the river. Shopkeepers whispered, the richest man in the country, dressed like that. Young men who had mocked him now avoided meeting his eyes. Even the pompous clothing merchant hung a sign outside his stall that read, respect all customers, appearances deceive. But Daniel remained unchanged. He rose at dawn, worked the fields, shared meals with his workers, and treated everyone with the same calm respect. Those who had once sneered now looked upon him with awe, though he never asked for it. His fortune, vast and unshakable, was almost invisible to the eye. But his wisdom, never judging worth by appearance, was the real wealth he shared with the world.